Question: what do Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates all have in common? They have all praised the Feynman technique as one of the ways they have effectively learned different things throughout their lives. So Richard Feynman was a famous physicist who created and proved an effective way to learn new subjects. This powerful method for learning and retaining new information is one that once you start using it, you can master any subject you want to master. Bill Gates has always praised the Feynman technique, and in an interview with Business Insider, he had this to say about the technique. I think the Feynman technique is really powerful. When you try to explain something to somebody else and you can't, that's when you really understand where your own understanding is fuzzy. Warren Buffett has stated that by using this technique, it has helped him to garner and enhance his skill of understanding complex and complicated financial concepts. So in this video, we're going to go over how you can use this technique so that you can study smarter, not harder. Well, in order to begin utilizing the Feynman technique, pick the topic you want to learn. Step 1, study the topic and seek to understand it. Step 2, explain the topic as if you were teaching it to someone else. Step 3, find any gaps of understanding that you have. Then you want to highlight those and then go back to your material source and try to fill in your gaps of understanding so that you're totally clear. Step 4, you repeat this until you can explain the concept in a simple, clear way with confidence. So Feynman discovered that by breaking down complex topics into simple, easy to understand explanations, you're not only learning the material, but you're also getting a deeper understanding of the subject. You might be thinking, this all sounds great, but does the Feynman technique truly work? And the answer is yes, it 100% does. In a 2021 study published by Ricolito's Multidisciplinary Research Journal, they showcased that the Feynman technique was a technique that could help students in class and with remote learners as well. In this study, students in grades 4, 7, and 11 were randomly assigned to be either in the experimental group or the control group. Each group went through a pre-test and a post-test to showcase the effectiveness of the Feynman technique. And guess what? The results were astounding. It showcased that the experimental group who had used the Feynman technique for the post-test had higher test scores and retained the information better than the control group who did not use the technique. So let me give you an example of how you can use this technique. Say you have an important science exam coming up, and one of the topics that you are struggling with is photosynthesis. So how would you be able to implement this technique to help you remember the process of it? Well, you would start off by learning what photosynthesis is. Next, you would explain how it works as if you were teaching a classmate. And so as you're explaining what the process of photosynthesis is, you should take notes where you seem to be struggling to remember. This allows you to highlight the information that you need to go back and learn more about. And so by utilizing this process, you are strengthening the knowledge you already know while highlighting the parts you need to learn and study more in depth. This technique is very, very, very beneficial when used, because by breaking down the topic you are studying into simple, easy to understand explanations, it literally forces you to actively engage in your learning. And by actively engaging in what you are studying, You're able to retain and recall the information better than just reading it off of a page. It also helps you highlight the trouble areas you have in the studying process, which in turn helps you study the stuff you don't understand versus the stuff you understand very well. So this is where you're gonna also save time. Now, one of the biggest things to remember is that this technique takes time and practice to master. Don't beat yourself up the first time you try it, because the more you use this technique, the better you're going to get at it. And then you're going to get to a place where you're able to break down complex topics into very simple terms. So as they say, practice makes perfect. The Feynman technique is one of the most popular studying techniques around the world. And best of all, you can use it beyond just your schoolwork. You can use it in your personal life. You can use it to learn any topic that you're interested in, like different languages, film history, and more. And so by being able to break down complex concepts into simple and easy to learn explanations, you can retain this information better and for longer periods of time. So give it a try and see how studying smarter, not harder, can save you time and curb frustration. Thank you so much for watching. Happy learning.
First rule, the moment you start to slide, you're shoveling against the tide. What you need to do is what? Take a break. And here's what's cool about it. You can study for a half hour. It doesn't take a half hour break to recharge your batteries. For most people, about 5 minutes.
We always dread sitting down to study for extended periods of time, but what you may not realize is that you are hindering yourself from studying effectively if you do this. As Marty Lobdell explains in his lecture, things that are reinforced we tend to do more of. Things that are punished or ignored, we tend to do less of. This can transfer to how we study as well. If we dread sitting down to study for 5 hours straight, we aren't going to study nearly as well as if we break up our study into smaller chunks of time. According to London's Global University, 5 of the benefits of taking study breaks include improved memory, reduced stress, improved health, and boosts to your energy, as well as boosting your performance and creativity. The main point to take away from this is to make sure to break up your study time from longer periods to shorter ones with scheduled breaks. As a bonus, add on a well-deserved treat at the end of the study time. It'll help motivate you to be more productive during your allotted study time.
And this is where you go away, do something fun for 5 minutes. Call a friend, talk to a child, talk to a parent, a roommate. Enjoy some music. Do something you enjoy and actually say, this is my treat for having studied for 30 minutes effectively. Go back and here's what happens. Your efficiency is nearly 100%. Study a half hour, take a break. Study a half hour, study a half hour.
Creating a study area is one of the best ways to help you when it comes to studying.
Researchers asked the students, what's the biggest problem with studying? They said, we can't get into it. The university in question had primarily dorm rooms. One side bed, another side of bed, study area, right? In one room, you sleep, you groom, you talk with people, you socialize, you study, you snack. It's a multi-purpose room, and yet you're supposed to study.
As Marty explains, we have certain cues as people when in certain areas of our homes. By using a designated study area where all you do is study, you train your brain and yourself that this is the area where you study, and that's all it is used for.
In the Hawaiian dorms, all of the rooms had a gooseneck lamp. So the professor said, we're going to try a little experiment. Take that lamp, make a little sign and put it on it, study lamp. Use it only for studying. You don't dress by it, you don't have BS sessions by it, you don't snack by it, you don't clean the room by it, nothing. You use the other lights for all other functions. You're ready to go, turn on the lamp and start studying. The moment you lose your edge, 15, 20, 30 minutes later, turn the lamp off, get up and leave the desk. what you're training yourself to study while seated there. And it becomes increasingly automatic. You sit, turn the lamp on, and you're ready to go. It's like magic. The students who did that were 1 grade point higher the next term compared to the control group that didn't do it. 1 grade point simply by creating a study area.
Not sure how to create a good study space? According to Joyce University, make sure your study area is well lit, has noise and light control, as well as some personal touches that will help motivate you when you don't feel like studying. These are some of the best ways to create a study environment that keeps you motivated and happy. Memorization is a great way to remember facts, but not every class you are in wants you to know just facts. Lots of classes do a combination of both memorization of facts and understanding of concepts. If you can memorize facts, you are only halfway there.
When you're reading it over and over, or saying it over and over, the term for that is rote memorization, spelled R-O-T-E. It can work. It is the way most of us were taught in elementary school, and some of you may be darn good at it. But for most of us, it's not the most efficient or effective way. The way to learn efficiently in college, first you have to decide, what am I learning? Is it a concept or a fact?
Students who understand the importance of concepts have a stronger and more powerful grasp on what they need to know for their upcoming exams. By understanding what the concept is, you are able to remember it for your exams, papers, and the rest of your life. According to the Department of Education, research suggests deep conceptual learning, DCL, is distinctly different than surface learning. Deep conceptual learners tend to think, discuss, and question more, seeking to understand rather than only memorize.
A fact is the discrete little piece of information. Understanding the name of a bone is a fact. Understanding what it does in the body gets into a concept. So in studying, sometimes there are a lot of facts. In fact, I use anatomy as a good example. You got to memorize bones, muscles, organs, tissues, a lot of it. But if you simply memorize and don't understand the function of it, the comprehension of the actual concepts, it's a lot of wasted learning, really. Just to know a name of a bone is like, yeah, so what? What does it do? How does it function? But in most college classes, what we as professors are most concerned about is that you grasp the concept. Because concepts, once grasped, will stay with you a lifetime.
By being able to not only memorize but dive deeper into your study topics, you can become more efficient in your learning and have a better grasp on your subject material.
Most of you undo good studying by not sleeping adequately. Some of the latest work on REMing, we're not sure exactly how, but there's something going on. It involves the hippocampus. It involves the storage from a transitory long-term memory to a permanent, what we call consolidation. But we're getting increasing evidence that that consolidation process is dependent on rapid eye movement sleep, which if you're an adult happens about every hour and a half once you fall asleep. If you're not getting a good night, typically around 8 hours, you're not getting enough REM. What you've studied doesn't become permanent. And I can tell you there are studies that show simply by getting better rest, some students improve markedly in their performance because their brain now stores it a lot more efficiently.
Without a good sleep, your brain cannot function properly and will not be able to absorb the information you are trying to learn.
By the way, if you know anybody with sleep apnea, the biggest thing they'll tell you is, I can't remember anything. My brain's shot. It's like my memory's gone. Yeah, it is, because your REMing isn't happening because you wake up so often and you can't consolidate and store permanent memories.
If you have trouble prioritizing sleep, Harvard's summer school has a few tips for you to try to get a more restful sleep. Try limiting caffeine close to bedtime, avoid electronic screens an hour before bedtime, and engage in physical activity 2 hours within your bedtime window. Make sure to establish a sleep schedule by going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time every day. It will help train you to get to bed. By prioritizing your sleep, you will help create a healthy routine that not only benefits your academic life, but other aspects of your life as well. According to Oregon State University, there are two primary functions in taking notes in class. Firstly, taking notes keeps you alert, attentive, and accountable as you listen, allowing you to pay attention to what the teacher is teaching on a deeper level. Secondly, the notes themselves become a record of what was discussed in class and can later be used for studying and review. According to the same study, students who took notes in class had stronger concentration and had an easier time recalling the information they took notes on, helping them with exam performance.
Taking notes, so vital. But most students who do it haven't learned a very simple rule. The first moment you get after a class, ideally right after the class, you should sit down with your notes and expand on everything you jotted down. Give it depth, flesh it out. Okay? If you even wait to go home and do it a couple hours later, you'll have forgotten some of your own notes. Well, that's a wasted note. But if you take the moment right after class to flesh it out, you now have a little more detail. Odds are at night, you can still recollect it. That will be a powerful addition with only about a 5-minute time investment per class. That is a good trade-off.
As for the importance of asking questions, according to the National Library of Medicine, the goal of asking and answering a question is not necessarily to probe a completely untouched area of science. Rather, it should be a personal quest to resolve a curiosity and grapple with trying to understand the answer. Teachers are very receptive to students asking questions, and more likely than not, you are probably not the only person with that question on their mind.
Teachers want students to succeed. Sometimes it isn't perceived that way. We want you to do well. It makes us happy. Let's say you're trying to flesh out your notes. It's like, I remember they said it or he said it, but I don't know what it was about. Look for a classmate. They're usually hanging around. Go up to somebody and say, hey, what was that about? And they can tell you. You come to my office, not just with, I'm not getting anything, but what was that about when you were talking about REM sleep, And I started explaining, that's what my life's about here, okay? We love it. That's a legitimate thing. Or if you don't want to go to the instructor's office, most of us start up a class. Any questions? Yeah, yesterday I didn't quite understand this piece about ontogeny recapitulating phylogeny. Okay, we'll go through that quickly. Once again, we like that. We want you to be successful.
By taking an active part in your own learning, whether it be writing notes or asking questions, you'll see how easily it helps you when it comes to your studying later. While this may seem like a silly study technique compared to the others covered, it actually has great potential to improve grades if used correctly.
It's a nice way of learning, active recitation. By the way, one piece of research said 80% of your study time is best spent reciting and only 20% reading.
Active recitation is an act of repeating what you learn out loud, similar to reading a paragraph out loud in class. According to a study published in Sage Journals, 2 experiments were conducted with a group of grade 6 students. In the first experiment, the teachers didn't use active recitation, they instead just spoke about the topic with the students. In the second experiment, the teachers made sure to not only incorporate active recitation, but also included asking a follow-up question related to the topic of study, so that the students had to think about what they learned about. The students who actively recited and answered the follow-up questions had an easier time recalling the information that they learned in comparison to the students who did not have the recitation incorporated into their learning.
How many of you know the best way to learn is to teach somebody else? Boy, if you've got family members or roommates, teach them geography, psychology, anatomy. They often love it. It's powerful because it reinforces your learning, plus it tells you if you really understood it. Because if mom or dad says, well, I don't quite get that, and you go, I don't understand it either, then very quickly you have to go back and redo it. Now, some of you may not have anybody at home to teach, or they are not interested. Too bad. Teach an empty chair. There's nothing wrong with talking out loud. Thinking is internal talking to a large degree. Now, for some of you, writing it out in your own words is a good thing. I'm lazy. I never liked to do a lot of writing, but I learned very quickly to look at it, look away, and do a little dialogue with myself, because it told me if I really understood it or not, very quickly.
Let's be honest. Textbooks have always been one of the most brutal aspects of studying. They can be dry and hard to read. Although this may be the case, it doesn't mean they don't have a place in studying.
Most students have not been taught how to use a textbook, and yet it's such a powerful tool. Because they haven't been taught the power of the tool, a large percentage don't even buy the book, in part because they're getting so darn expensive. But students don't know the effective way of using it. How many of you know of SQ3R? Survey, that's the S. Question, that's the Q. Then you have 3 R's: read, recite, review.
According to Cuesta College, one of the best ways to tackle your assigned textbook readings is to formulate questions about the text and look for the answer. Looking for the answer in the textbook versus just reading the assigned text passively allows you to be more actively involved in your reading, thus making it easier to study the pages in your textbook.
Because we schedule tests, most students don't start studying till shortly before an exam. They put so much time all massed together and only study for about a half hour, pull all-nighters so they don't get the good rest, come in and do poorly. You're undoing yourself. If you start studying early and do some of the things I've talked about, by the time you get to the test, you're just reviewing at that point. You've got to memorize facts. How do you do that? What you use, mnemonics. In my view, they're quicker, easier than rote memorization, and I do use them.
Mnemonics can help with memorization and recall important information in a simple and very easy to understand way. According to UTEP Extended University, mnemonics help students learn concepts and break them down into a simple to recall limerick, acronym, or jingle.
How many of you have learned that you can take letters and form a word of it, using those letters to remember certain facts? Okay. Ones that come to my mind, Roy G. Biv. How many of you know about Roy G. Biv? Those are the colors of the rainbow. Now, if you're in an art class, that could be important. If you're taking physics and you're learning about the spectrum of light when it goes through a prism, or you're breaking down light in anything that refracts it out, like a rainbow, you know.
By utilizing these techniques, you'll be able to study smarter, not harder, and ace this school year. Finding good study techniques is one thing, but finding good study techniques that work is an entirely different thing. Jean-Paul Martin, a retired professor from Catholic University of Eichstätt, Ingolstadt, noticed how difficult it can be for students to learn a topic. Instead of brushing it off as the student's fault, he created the LDL, or learning by teaching method, now referred to as the Protegé effect. This method has helped students at all different levels from all around the world. So if you're looking for a study technique that can help you go from an average student to A+, this is the video for you. So what is the Protegé effect? Simply put, this technique is a way for students to learn by teaching others. This idea has been a part of humanity for thousands of years. The earliest recollection of this idea is from Roman philosopher Seneca, who has been quoted in saying, "While we teach, we learn." This method is a time-tested method, but has only started to gain scientific attention, with research being done to figure out why this method is truly one of the best to use when it comes to learning new material. Educators from around the world are trying to find ways that they can incorporate this technique into their programs. A program created by the University of Pennsylvania has helped their students use this method in their daily studies. In this program, college undergraduates taught high school students computer science. Then the high school students taught middle school students what they learned. At the end of the program, the undergraduate students were asked to rate their experience in the course. They all agreed that their learning of computer science principles was reinforced through teaching. Their overall understanding of computer science education increased, and their capacity to serve as role models to aspiring young technologists was increased by the high school students' willingness to turn to them for support. They also noted that they saw an increase in their problem-solving capabilities, felt more confident in hands-on teaching, and their ability to deliver effective presentations. This is one of the few ways educators have started to add the Protegé effect to their students' day-to-day studies. The proof of this technique isn't just with research and programs being implemented by teachers, it is also scientifically proven through brain chemistry. According to the American Psychological Association, with the added expectation of teaching another person the source material, it triggers an increase in metacognitive processing, a process in the brain that allows people to become more actively aware of their learning process. That's not all. Another finding done by John Nestoiko and Dung Bui from the University of Washington, Elizabeth Ligon Bjork from the University of California, and Nate Cornell from Williams College found that students who use this method of studying were more inclined to organize their materials and seek out key pieces of information to be prepared to answer any questions from the person they were teaching. Another great reason that the Protegé effect is a great option for people to try is because they get external motivation to learn the material and learn it well. According to Catherine Chase, Doris Chin, Marilee Opezzo, and Daniel Schwartz of Stanford University, people who learn to teach others will make a greater effort to learn the information and know the information more in depth than they would if they were learning for themselves. Now that we've gone through the research on why this technique is good to use for your studying, let's go over a few different ways to use the technique in your own studies. One of the most common ways to use this technique is to teach someone. Whether this be a parent, a friend, or even a fellow classmate, teaching someone about what you are learning will help solidify the knowledge you've learned and will make it clear which parts of your knowledge on the subject matter needs to be worked on. Don't have someone to teach? No worries. A rubber duck will solve that problem. According to the University of Business Innovation and Sustainability, the rubber duck debugging theory is a practice often used by computer programmers to help solve a bug in their coding. As silly as it sounds, this is when the programmer recites the computer code line by line to the rubber duck until the problem reveals a solution. This works quite well when studying for an exam or trying to grasp a topic really well. By verbally explaining the source material, this helps you pay close attention to detail, which in turn helps you understand on a deeper level. One of the cool things about this technique is that it can be applied outside of the classroom. Some studies have shown that just by preparing to teach someone, it can improve your information processing as well as your motor learning needed to perform physical tasks. For example, if you were going to teach someone how to swim using a backstroke, you would have to practice how to do a backstroke properly so you weren't misleading your student. Academically or outside of the classroom, the Protegé effect is guaranteed to help you become not only a more effective teacher, but a more confident learner too. Still not convinced? Well, what if I told you that a computer program has been created to help students implement the Protegé effect in their day-to-day learnings? According to the Vanderbilt School of Engineering, Betty's Brain is a computer program designed to bring out the teaching in learners everywhere. Betty's Brain is a computer-based learning program that utilizes the Protegé effect for young learners using the program. In the program, the student has to teach Betty about different processes in science like climate change and ecosystems. They are even charged with testing Betty with quizzes and answering questions to see if she is learning the topics properly. This adds not only pressure on the student to learn about the topic for themselves, but also be able to know the topic so well that Betty can benefit from their teachings. To quote a Latin proverb, "By learning you will teach, by teaching you will learn." Teaching is a great way to learn and to keep learning. The Protegé effect is used as a way to learn something in a different way and increase your knowledge on the subject. You first must learn the subject to teach it to another person, After teaching it, it's always great to ask for feedback on what you can improve on and see if there are any gaps of knowledge that you need to work on. By breaking this process down into a science, you should be able to understand the material you were teaching more clearly. Are you going to give this method a try? Why or why not? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with our latest videos.